Captain Alan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the view screen. The massive alien ship hanging in space before them glimmered like a pearl against the blackness. This was it. Humanity's first official contact with an alien species. "Status report," Alan said, his voice steady despite the historic moment. Lieutenant Susan Blackwell looked up from her console. "All systems normal, Captain." The Zoloshian vessel maintains position at 5,000 kilometers. Their shields are up, but weapon systems appear inactive. Alan nodded. 6 months ago, the Zolaxians had sent their first transmission to Earth. They were traders, they said, part of a vast network of spacefaring civilizations. They wanted peaceful relations and cultural exchange. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, humanity had finally found it. Or rather, it had found them. "Communications, open a channel," Alan ordered. Communications Officer Peter Collins tapped at his console. "Channel open, sir." Alan straightened his uniform jacket. "This is Captain Alan Mitchell of the United Earth Defense Force vessel, USS Defiant. We welcome you to Earth's solar system and look forward to our meeting." The view screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The Zoloshian had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. Its eyes were large and completely black, set in a face with minimal features except for a small mouth. "Greetings, Captain Mitchell. I am Ambassador Krell of the Zoloshian Trade Federation. We are honored to be the first to establish formal relations with your species." The ambassador's voice had an odd musical quality to it, the universal translator giving it an almost lyrical cadence. "The honor is ours, Ambassador," Alan replied. "Our diplomatic team is ready to transport to your vessel at your convenience." "Excellent. We await their arrival with great anticipation." The screen went dark, and Alan turned to his first officer, Commander John Rivera. "John, you have the bridge. I'll be joining the diplomatic team." John nodded. "Good luck, sir. Try not to start an interstellar war on our first day." Alan smiled. "I'll do my best." 30 minutes later, Alan stood in the transport bay alongside 5 members of Earth's hastily assembled first contact team. Ambassador Lisa Harris, a veteran diplomat with silver hair and sharp eyes, led the group. "Remember," Lisa said to the team, "we're representing not just our nations, but our entire species. Let's make a good first impression." The transport technician gave them a thumbs up. "Coordinates locked in. Ready when you are." Lisa nodded. "Energize." There was a brief sensation of weightlessness. Then Alan found himself standing in a large, circular chamber aboard the Zoloshian vessel. The walls curved upward to form a dome, with intricate patterns etched into a material that looked like glass but glowed with an inner light. 5 Zolaxians waited for them. Ambassador Krell stepped forward, raising both hands with palms facing outward in what they had learned was a traditional Zoloshian greeting. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Harmony," Krell said. "Please, follow me to our meeting chamber." As they walked through the alien ship, Alan couldn't help but notice how the Zolaxians kept a careful distance from the humans. Their movements seemed cautious, almost wary, given the difference in their physical builds. He supposed it made sense. Humans were taller and more muscular than the slender Zolaxians. Still, there was something in their manner that struck him as odd. The meeting chamber was another circular room with a round table in the center. The Earth delegation sat on one side, the Zolaxians on the other. For the next 3 hours, they discussed the basics of diplomatic relations, trade possibilities, and cultural exchange programs. The Zolaxians were particularly interested in Earth's history and development of space travel. They seemed surprised by how quickly humans had progressed from their first orbital flights to their current technology. "Your species has achieved in less than a century what took most civilizations millennia," one of the Zoloshian officials remarked. "We're fast learners," Lisa replied with a smile. Alan noticed a quick glance between 2 of the Zolaxians. There was again that strange undercurrent of, was it concern? After the formal meeting concluded, Ambassador Krell approached Alan, while the others were examining some Zoloshian cultural artifacts. "Captain Mitchell, might I have a word in private?" Alan followed Krell to a small alcove away from the others. I hope our first meeting has been satisfactory, Krell said. Very much so, Alan replied. I believe we've made an excellent start. Krell's large black eyes studied Alan's face. I feel I should tell you something, Captain. Your species has been discussed among the galactic community. Alan raised an eyebrow. Discussed? But this is our first contact. Official contact, yes. But your broadcasts have been reaching into space for over a century. Some of our more curious members have observed your planet from afar. I see, Alan said slowly. And what conclusions have they drawn? Krell's voice lowered. There are rumors, Captain. Rumors have spread among the trading routes and diplomatic channels. About humans. What kind of rumors? That you are unusual. That your species developed in ways that others find concerning. Alan frowned. I'm not sure I understand. Your resilience. Your adaptability. The speed of your technological advancement. Krell leaned closer. The nature of your conflicts. Every species must have had conflicts in their development, Alan said. Not like yours. Krell's voice was barely above a whisper now. Not with such intensity. Before Alan could ask for clarification, Ambassador Lisa called for him. The moment was gone. We will speak more of this later. Perhaps, Krell said, moving back toward the main group. The rest of the visit went smoothly, with agreements for future meetings and the establishment of an Earth embassy on the Zolashian trading station. But Alan couldn't shake the feeling that something important had been left unsaid. When they returned to the Defiant, Alan headed straight for the bridge. Report, he said to Commander Rivera. All quiet, sir. The meeting went well. Yes, though. Alan hesitated. John, I got the distinct impression the Zolaxians are afraid of us. John looked surprised. Afraid? Why would they be afraid? They're the ones with the advanced technology. I'm not sure. Ambassador Krell mentioned rumors about humans in the galactic community. Said something about our conflicts being unusual. Lieutenant Blackwell turned from her station. Sir, during the meeting, I conducted some passive scans of their vessel. Their technology is impressive, but their defensive systems seem limited. Limited how? Alan asked. Their shields are designed primarily for protection against space debris and radiation. Their hull materials wouldn't withstand significant weapons fire. Alan frowned. Are you saying their warships aren't built for actual combat? Based on what I could observe, sir, I don't think the Stellar Harmony is a warship at all. It's purely a diplomatic vessel. They came to meet a completely unknown species in a ship with no real defensive capabilities? Commander Rivera sounded incredulous. Maybe they truly are peaceful traders, Alan suggested. Or maybe they didn't consider us a threat. Or they were testing us, Security Chief Daniel Mason said from a station, seeing how we'd react to a vulnerable target. Alan considered this. Continue monitoring their vessel, but maintain our current alert status. I don't want to appear hostile. As the bridge crew returned to their duties, Alan sat in his command chair, thinking about Krell's words. Rumors about humanity, their unusual conflicts, their rapid advancement. From humanity's perspective, they were just doing what was necessary to survive and progress. But how did they appear to species with different evolutionary paths? 12 light years away, aboard the Draconid Imperium command ship Inevitable Conquest, War Admiral Vex Kor received a report from his intelligence division. The Zolaxians have made official contact with the humans, his intelligence officer reported. Vex Kor's scale face remained impassive. The Draconids resembled Earth's ancient reptiles, with tough, armored skin and powerful bodies built for combat. Show me the human vessel, he ordered. A holographic image of the USS Defiant appeared in the center of the command deck. Vex Kor studied it with narrow, vertical-pupiled eyes. Primitive, he said dismissively. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Yes, War Admiral, but our scouts report they have advanced remarkably quickly. Some analysts believe they could catch up to galactic standards within decades rather than centuries. Vex Kor growled. The Zolaxians are fools to welcome them into the galactic community so readily. These humans occupy a strategic region of space that will be valuable to our expansion. He walked around the hologram, examining the human ship from all angles. The Imperium will not stand by while a potential rival establishes itself. The humans must be shown their place in the galactic hierarchy. What are your orders, War Admiral? Vexcor's mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among the species. Set course for the human solar system. We will not announce our arrival as the Zolaxians did. First, we will observe. Then, we will demonstrate our power. A small show of force should be sufficient to ensure the humans understand their position. The officer saluted, pressing a clawed fist to his armored chest. As the Draconid fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Vexcor continued to study the image of the USS Defiant. Such a primitive vessel, such a young species. They would learn quickly that in the galactic community, power was the only language that truly mattered. Little did he know that one scan of a human warship would soon change everything he thought he knew about this emerging species. 3 days after the first meeting with the Zolaxians, life aboard the USS Defiant had settled into a new routine. The diplomatic team remained on Earth, processing the mountain of information exchanged during the initial contact. Captain Alan Mitchell and his crew continued their patrol of the solar system's edge, now with the added task of escorting Zolician ships when they arrived. Alan sat in his ready room, reviewing reports on his tablet, when the door chimed. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Susan Blackwell stepped in, holding her own tablet. "Lieutenant," Alan greeted her. "What can I do for you?" "Sir, I've been analyzing the sensor data we gathered from the Zolician ship," Susan said. "I noticed something odd." Alan gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down. What did you find?" Susan sat and placed her tablet on the desk, turning it so Alan could see the display. "Their power distribution systems are unlike anything I expected. Look at these readings." Alan studied the diagram. "I'm not an engineer, Lieutenant. What am I looking at?" "Their ship generates enormous amounts of power, sir. Much more than they need for propulsion and life support. But they don't have anything that could be weapon systems drawing on that power." Alan frowned. "Maybe their FTL drive requires more power than we thought." "That's just it, sir. Even accounting for their faster-than-light technology, there's still this surplus energy. It's like they built their ships with power systems that could support heavy weapons and defenses, but never installed them." Alan leaned back in his chair. "That's consistent with what you observed about their defensive capabilities." "Yes, sir. It got me thinking about what Ambassador Krell said to you, about human conflicts being unusual." Susan hesitated. "I took the liberty of asking their science officer some hypothetical questions during our tour exchange yesterday." "What kind of questions?" "About how the Zolaxians handle territorial disputes, resource competition, that sort of thing." His answers were illuminating. Alan raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "The Zolaxians haven't had a war among their own people in over 10,000 years, sir. And from what I could gather, even those ancient conflicts would barely qualify as wars by our standards. More like limited skirmishes with strict rules of engagement. What about conflicts with other species?" "That's just it, sir." He seemed confused by the question. When I clarified, he explained that disputes between spacefaring civilizations are almost always resolved through negotiation or arbitration by the Galactic Concord. Alan tapped his fingers on the desk. "Are you saying that advanced civilizations don't fight wars?" "Not the way humans understand war, no. At least not the Zolaxians." Susan's eyes were bright with the excitement of discovery. "Captain, I think we might be unusual in the galaxy. Our history of conflict, our approach to survival and competition, it might be rare among spacefaring species." Before Alan could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Commander Rivera's voice came over the comm. "Captain, to the bridge. Unidentified vessels approaching the system." Alan stood quickly. "On my way." When Alan and Susan reached the bridge, the main view screen showed 3 dots of light approaching from deep space. "Report," Alan ordered, taking a seat. 3 vessels approaching at high speed, sir," Rivera said. "They're not responding to hails, and they're not broadcasting any identification signals." "Are they Zolician?" "Negative, sir. Configuration is unlike anything in the database they provided us." Alan turned to Susan. Lieutenant, get to your station. What can you tell me about these ships? Susan quickly moved to the sensor console. After a moment, she looked up with concern. Sir, these ships are heavily armed. Energy readings suggest powerful weapon systems, and their approach formation is clearly tactical. This is a military force. Alan's expression hardened. Battle stations. Raised shields. Throughout the ship, alert signals sounded as crew members rushed to their combat positions. The USS Defiant might be primarily an exploration and diplomatic vessel, but it was still a warship of a United Earth Defense Force. Sir, Communications Officer Peter Collins called out, we're receiving a transmission from the Zolashen Trading Station. Ambassador Krell is requesting to speak with you urgently. Put him through, Alan ordered. Krell's face appeared on the screen, his usually calm expression replaced with visible concern. Captain Mitchell, our long-range sensors have detected Draconid vessels approaching your system. Draconid? Alan asked. The Draconid Imperium, a militant species that controls several star systems near the sector. They are not members of the Galactic Concord and have a reputation for aggressive expansion. Alan glanced at the tactical display. We've detected 3 ships on approach. They're not responding to hails. Krell's large eyes widened. Captain, you must understand, the Draconids are dangerous. They use intimidation and shows of force to subjugate less advanced species. If they're approaching without announcing themselves, their intentions are not peaceful. What do you suggest, Ambassador? Our diplomatic vessel is 2 days from your position. We can attempt to intervene. With all due respect, Ambassador, Alan interrupted, your ship has minimal defensive capabilities. If these Draconids are as aggressive as you say, you'd be putting yourselves at risk. But, Captain, we appreciate the warning, Ambassador. I'll keep you informed of developments. Mitchell out. Alan turned to his tactical officer. Chief Mason, status of our weapon systems? Daniel Mason's fingers flew over his console. All systems online, sir. Missile tubes loaded. Energy weapons charged. Sir, Susan called out, the lead Draconid vessel is scanning us. It's a powerful, broad-spectrum scan. They're looking at everything, our hull composition, our power systems, our weapons. Alan considered his options. Most captains would try to mask their capabilities to maintain some element of surprise. But a different strategy occurred to him. Let them look, he said. The bridge crew turned to him in surprise. Sir, Rivera questioned, don't attempt to block their scans. In fact, power up all systems to full capacity. Let them see exactly what we're capable of. Susan looked uncertain. Captain, that would reveal all our tactical capabilities. Alan nodded. Exactly. Ambassador Krell suggested these Draconids use intimidation tactics. Let's show them we're not easily intimidated. On the Draconid command ship Inevitable Conquest, War Admiral Vexcor watched as the scan data of a human vessel streamed onto the large holographic display. Analysis, he commanded. His chief military analyst, a battle-scarred Draconid named Sizak, studied the readings with narrowed eyes. The vessel is smaller than ours, War Admiral, but heavily armed for its size. Multiple missile launch tubes, energy weapon emplacements covering all angles of approach. No blind spots in their defensive coverage. Vexcor snorted. Primitive weapons. Their energy signatures are far below our output levels. Yes, War Admiral, but... Sizak zoomed in on a section of the scan. Their hull composition is unusual. Multiple layers of different materials, designed to absorb and distribute energy impacts. And look at this, manual targeting systems that can operate independently from their main computer. Meaning, they can continue targeting and firing even if their main systems are damaged. Sizak moved to another section of the scan. And these are redundant systems throughout the ship. Life support, propulsion, weapon control, all with manual backups. Vexcor frowned. Inefficient design. Perhaps, War Admiral, but resilient. This ship is designed to take significant damage and continue fighting. Another analyst called out, War Admiral, examining their interior layout. These compartments appear to be emergency medical facilities, extensive facilities distributed throughout the vessel. Sci-Zac looked up from the scanned data. They expect casualties. They designed their ships assuming they will be damaged and crew members will be injured. And look at these atmospheric containment systems. A third analyst noted. Each section of the ship can be sealed independently. They're designed to continue operating even with multiple hull breaches. VexCorp moved closer to display, his earlier dismissiveness fading. What about their crew spaces? The scan shifted to show the interior cabins, mess halls, and duty stations. Their crew quarters are reinforced, Sci-Zac noted, and designed for long-term habitation during combat conditions. They have supplies and emergency provisions distributed throughout the ship. A cold feeling began to spread through VexCorp's chest. They designed their ships expecting extended warfare. Yes, War Admiral, not for quick, decisive victories, but for prolonged conflict, for endurance. VexCorp studied the scan data again. The human ship was indeed less advanced in many ways. Their weapons had less power. Their engines were slower. But the design philosophy behind the vessel was unlike anything he had seen before. Most spacefaring civilizations designed their warships to win quickly or retreat. The human vessel was built to endure punishment, to adapt to damage, to continue fighting against overwhelming odds. What kind of species? VexCorp said slowly, designs warships this way. Sci-Zac looked up at his commander, one with a long history of warfare, War Admiral, brutal warfare. Aboard the USS Defiant, Susan watched her sensor readings with growing confusion. Captain, the Draconid vessels have halted their approach. They're holding position just outside our system's boundary. Alan frowned. Have they launched any smaller craft? Missiles? No, sir. They're just sitting there, still scanning us. Alan and Rivera exchanged glances. What do you think they're waiting for? Rivera asked quietly. I'm not sure, Alan replied. But keep our weapons locked on their position. If they so much as twitch in our direction, I want to be ready. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then Susan straightened at her console. Sir, the Draconid vessels are powering up their engines. They're turning around. They're retreating? Mason asked incredulously. It appears so, sir. Alan didn't relax. Maintain battle stations. This could be a tactic to lower our guard. But as they watched, the three Draconid ships move away from Earth's solar system, eventually jumping to faster-than-light speed and disappearing from their sensors. The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. I don't understand, Rivera said. They came all this way just to scan us and leave? Alan turned to Susan. Lieutenant, what exactly did they see when they scanned us? Susan reviewed the data on her console. Everything, sir. Our weapon systems, our defenses, our internal layout, our life support systems. And they ran, Mason said, a note of pride in his voice. Alan wasn't celebrating yet. The question is, why? We're clearly less advanced than they are. What did they see that frightened them away? As the bridge crew contemplated this question, none of them could know the panic now spreading to the Draconid command structure. Panic caused by a single scan of a human warship, and what it revealed about this strange, newly discovered species. War Admiral VexCorp paced the command deck of the inevitable conquest, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. The scan data from a human vessel, still displayed on the main screen. His officers watched him nervously, none daring to speak first. Finally, VexCorp stopped pacing and turned to his second-in-command. Send all scan data to High Command immediately. Mark it as urgent intelligence. Then set course for Draconid Prime. Maximum speed. War Admiral. Sci-Zac ventured cautiously. Should we not remain to observe the humans further? Perhaps launch a probe to gather more information? VexCorp fixed a subordinate with a cold stare. Did you not see what I saw in those scans? The humans must be studied carefully before any further contact. I will not risk my fleet against an unknown threat. But surely 3 of our warships could overpower one of theirs, another officer suggested. Perhaps, VexCorp admitted. Perhaps not. but their vessel reveals something far more dangerous than its weapons. It reveals a mentality we have not encountered before. He gestured to the scan display. Look at their ship design. Every system has manual backups. Their weapons can be aimed and fired without computer assistance. Their medical facilities can handle hundreds of casualties. They have reinforced crew quarters with independent life support. Vexcor leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. What does this tell you about the humans? The officers exchanged glances. Sizak finally answered. They expect to take heavy damage in combat, War Admiral. Exactly. And yet they still go into space. They still build ships to fight. Vexcor's eyes narrowed. What kind of species evolves with such an expectation of violence? No one answered. They didn't need to. We retreat. We study. We prepare. Then we decide how to approach these humans. Vexcor turned away, ending the discussion. As the Draconid ships accelerated away from Earth's solar system, the data transmission to their homeworld was already causing ripples of concern among the Imperium's leadership. Back on the USS Defiant, Captain Alan Mitchell sat in the conference room with the senior officers. The strange encounter with the Draconid ships had left them with more questions than answers. They came all this way just to look at us and leave? Commander Rivera asked, shaking his head. It doesn't make sense. Unless they saw something that changed their plans, Alan suggested. He turned to Susan. Lieutenant Blackwell, what exactly could they have learned from their scans? Susan pulled up the data on her tablet. They conducted a comprehensive analysis of our ship, sir. Hull composition, weapon systems, power distribution, even our interior layout. Could they have detected weaknesses to exploit later? Security Chief Mason asked. Possibly, Susan admitted, but our defenses are solid. Nothing about our capabilities would suggest we're an easy target. Alan tapped his fingers on the table. What if it wasn't our weaknesses that concerned them, but our strengths? The officers looked at him curiously. Ambassador Krell mentioned that humans are discussed in the galactic community, that our conflicts are unusual. Alan stood and walked the view screen, bringing up an image of the Defiant. What if our approach to ship design is fundamentally different from theirs? Susan's eyes widened with understanding. Sir, based on what I learned from the Zolaxians, most spacefaring species evolved beyond large-scale warfare before developing interstellar travel. Their conflicts are limited with strict rules, while human history, Rivera began, is filled with warfare, Alan finished. Constant, adaptive, brutal warfare, and our ships reflect that history. He highlighted various sections of the Defiant on the display. Redundant systems, manual overrides, extensive medical facilities, reinforced crew quarters. We design our ships assuming they'll take damage and need to keep fighting. You think that frightened them away? Mason asked skeptically. I think it made them reconsider whatever they were planning, Alan replied. They came expecting an easy show of force against a less advanced species. Instead, they found a ship designed by a species that expects a fight, takes casualties, and keeps going. Communications Officer Peter Collins, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Nelson wants to speak with you immediately. Alan nodded. I'll take in my ready room. Minutes later, Alan sat at his desk, facing the stern image of Admiral Gregory Nelson on his screen. Captain, Nelson began without preamble. I've reviewed your report on the Draconid encounter. The diplomatic corps is in an uproar. Ambassador Harris wants to establish immediate contact with these Draconids to clarify their intentions. With all due respect, Admiral, Alan replied, I'm not sure that's wise. Their approach was clearly meant to intimidate. The fact that they retreated doesn't mean they're not hostile. Agreed. That's why I'm sending reinforcements to your position. The USS Intrepid and USS Valiant will join you within 48 hours. Alan nodded. Thank you, sir. In the meantime, Nelson continued, the Zoloshian ambassador has requested an emergency meeting with our Security Council. Apparently, this incident has attracted attention from other species as well. Other species, sir? Yes. Representatives from something called the Galactic Concord are on their way to Earth. The Zolaxians say it's unprecedented for them to visit a newly discovered civilization this quickly. Alan frowned. Do we know what they want? Not yet, but the Zolaxians seem concerned. Nelson's expression hardened. I want you back at Earth, Captain. Whatever's happening, I want my best officers present. We'll set course immediately, sir. After the call ended, Alan returned to the bridge and ordered the helm to set course for Earth. As the Defiant accelerated toward home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had been set in motion by that simple scan. On Draconid Prime, a world of harsh deserts and towering citadels, the High Command of the Draconid Imperium had convened an emergency session. 12 senior war admirals sat around a circular table, with the scan data from a human ship projected above them. War Admiral Vexcor stood before his peers, completing his report. Based on our analysis, I made the decision to withdraw rather than engage. The humans represent an unknown factor that requires further study. High Commander Razgul, the most senior officer present, leaned forward. His scales were gray with age, but his eyes remained sharp. You fled from a single, technologically inferior vessel, Vexcor? Vexcor stiffened at the implied criticism. I made a tactical withdrawal to preserve our strategic advantage. High Commander, the human ship's design philosophy suggests capabilities we did not anticipate. Another War Admiral spoke up. Explain what you mean by their design philosophy. Vexcor gestured to the scan data. Look at their ship. Every system has manual backups. Their crew quarters are reinforced like bunkers. Their medical facilities can handle casualties numbering in the hundreds. They have weapon targeting systems that operate independently from their main computer. He paused, letting the implication sink in. Most significantly, their power distribution grid can reroute around damaged sections automatically. Even if half their ship were destroyed, the remaining weapons could still fire. Murmur spread around the table as the war admirals examined the data more closely. This is a vessel designed by a species with a very different expectation of space combat than our own. Vexcor continued. They don't expect quick, decisive victories. They expect prolonged, brutal warfare with heavy casualties. And they design their ships to survive and continue fighting regardless. High Commander Razgul's expression darkened. What are you suggesting, War Admiral? I believe the humans may have evolved through a more violent path than other known species. Their technological development is less advanced than ours, yes, but their mindset. Vexcor searched for the right words. Their mindset is that of natural warriors. A tense silence fell over the chamber. We should destroy them now, before they advance further, one of the younger war admirals suggested. If they're as dangerous as you claim, we cannot allow them to spread into the galaxy. And risk provoking a species that might fight to the last individual? Another countered. If Vexcor is right, the humans won't surrender easily. The cost would be too high. High Commander Razgul raised a hand for silence. We will not act hastily. War Admiral Vexcor, prepare a full tactical assessment of the human capabilities based on your scan data. I want to know exactly what we would face in a conflict. He turned to another officer. Contact our informants in the Galactic Concord. I want to know what the other species are saying about these humans. To a third, he said, begin drawing up contingency plans for containing the human expansion should it become necessary. Razgul stood, his decision made. This meeting is concluded. Until we know more, no Draconid vessel will approach the human territory without my direct authorization. As the war admirals filed out, Vexcor lingered, studying the image of the USS Defiant once more. Such a simple vessel in many ways, yet designed with an understanding of warfare that even the Draconids found unsettling. What kind of history had shaped the humans to build ships this way? And what would they build once they advanced to the Draconids' level of technology? The thought made even Vexcor, a veteran of a dozen interstellar campaigns, uncomfortable. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news was spreading. A species called humans had been discovered, and their warships were unlike anything seen before. The Zolician trading networks buzzed with rumors. The diplomatic channels of the Galactic Concord filled with concerned messages, and all because of one scan of a human warship. On Earth, Blissfully unaware of the stir they were causing throughout the galaxy, humanity continued its daily business. The diplomatic team prepared for the arrival of the Galactic Concord representatives, excited at the prospect of meeting more alien species. Only Captain Alan Mitchell and a few others suspected that something unusual was happening. As the Defiant approached Earth, Alan stood on the observation deck, looking at the blue-green planet that was his home. What did they see in us? He wondered aloud. What did they see that made them run? He would soon find out, and the answer would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Two days later, Captain Alan Mitchell stood in Earth's newly constructed Interstellar Diplomatic Center. The massive dome-shaped building had been hastily completed after first contact with the Zolaxians. Today, it would host an even more important meeting. Alan straightened his dress uniform as he watched the Earth delegation file into the large circular chamber. Ambassador Lisa Harris led the group, followed by Admiral Gregory Nelson, several high-ranking military officers, and key government officials. Alan had been surprised when Admiral Nelson personally requested his presence at this meeting. The Defiant was at the center of whatever spooked the Draconids, Nelson had explained. I want you there to answer any questions that might come up. Now, as Alan took his seat beside the Admiral, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Whatever had frightened away the Draconid ships had apparently caused enough concern to bring representatives from multiple alien species to Earth. Nervous, Captain? Admiral Nelson asked quietly. A bit, sir, Alan admitted. I'm more used to commanding a ship than participating in diplomatic events. Nelson nodded. Just stick to the facts if they ask you anything. These aliens seem jumpy enough already. Before Alan could respond, the large doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Ambassador Krell entered, leading a group of 7 aliens of different species. Alan recognized the Zolaxian's shimmering blue skin, but the others were completely new to him. One had 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like chameleon. Another resembled a tall, thin insect with compound eyes. A third floated above the ground, its body translucent and glowing faintly. The remaining 4 were equally diverse. One covered in fur, another with a hard shell, a third that appeared to be made of living crystal, and the last resembling a large, upright reptile with feathers. The delegation from the Galactic Concord, a protocol officer announced. Everyone stood as the aliens took their places on the opposite side of the circular table. Alan noticed how the reptilian alien, who must be a Draconid, kept its distance from the others. Once everyone was seated, Ambassador Harris stepped forward to welcome the visitors. On behalf of humanity and Earth, we welcome the representatives of the Galactic Concord. We are honored by your visit and look forward to establishing peaceful relations with all your species. One of the aliens, the one with the color-shifting skin and 4 arms, rose in response. I am Zalprax, elder statesman of the Galactic Concord. We appreciate your welcome, though I must clarify that our visit today is somewhat unusual in nature. His voice was deep and resonant, the universal translator giving it perfect clarity. Normally, newly discovered spacefaring species are given time to establish themselves before formal relations with the Concord begin. However, recent events have prompted us to accelerate this process. Ambassador Harris nodded diplomatically. We understand your concerns following the incident with the Draconid ships near our system. We assure you, Earth had no hostile intentions. Our vessel was merely defending our territory. The Draconid representative hissed softly, but said nothing. Zalprax's skin rippled with blues and greens. Yes, about your vessel, the USS Defiant. We would like to discuss its unusual design elements. Alan felt all eyes turned toward him as Admiral Nelson gestured for him to speak. I'm Captain Alan Mitchell of the USS Defiant, he said, standing. What would you like to know about my ship? The crystalline alien spoke next, its voice tinkling like wind chimes. Captain, our analysis of scanned data shared by the Draconid Imperium raises several questions. Your vessel appears designed with certain aggressive assumptions. Alan frowned. I'm not sure what you mean by aggressive assumptions. The insectoid alien clicked its mandibles before speaking. Your crew quarters are reinforced to withstand combat conditions. Your medical facilities are extensive. Your systems have manual backups throughout. Your power distribution allows weapons to function even when major sections of the ship are damaged. Those are standard safety features, Alan replied, confused. Any responsible ship design includes redundancies and protections for the crew. The aliens exchanged glances that Alan couldn't interpret. Zalprax leaned forward. Captain Mitchell, perhaps you could explain the purpose of the USS Defiant? What is its primary mission? The Defiant is a multi-purpose vessel, Alan explained. Exploration, diplomacy, scientific research, and yes, defense of Earth and its colonies if necessary. And the extensive weapon systems? The Draconid representative asked with clear suspicion. Are those also for exploration? Admiral Nelson intervened. The weapons are the floating, translucent alien drifted slightly forward. Captain Mitchell, in the history of most spacefaring civilizations represented here, armed conflict between advanced species is exceedingly rare. Most of us develop beyond warfare, before we reach the stars. Alan struggled to hide his surprise. I see. That's not the case for humanity. Yes, Zalprax said. We have studied your broadcasts. Your history is unusual among known intelligent species. Ambassador Harris tried to steer the conversation to safer ground. Surely all species have had conflicts in their past? Of course, the furry alien replied, speaking for the first time. But for most of us, such conflicts were limited and ritualized. They rarely involved total warfare or mass casualties. And your ship designs reflect this different evolutionary path, Zalprax added, returning to the original topic. You build vessels expecting to take damage, to lose crew members, and to continue fighting regardless. Alan glanced at Admiral Nelson, who nodded slightly, encouraging him to continue. Our ships are designed to protect our crew as much as possible, Alan said carefully. The redundancies and safety features are there to save lives, not to prolong combat. Yet you expect combat, the Draconid representative said. You prepare for it extensively. We hope for peace, Admiral Nelson interjected. But yes, we prepare for the possibility of conflict. Is that not prudent? The crystalline alien surface flickered with inner light. It is a different approach than most spacefaring species take. Not necessarily wrong, but concerning in its implications. Zalprax raised all four hands in a calming gesture. We did not come here to judge humanity's evolutionary path or cultural development. We came to understand and to establish clear communication. He turned to Ambassador Harris. However, in the interest of galactic stability, we will request more information about your military capabilities and future expansion plans. Ambassador Harris frowned. With all due respect, elder statesman, that information is sensitive to Earth security. We came to this meeting expecting to discuss trade and cultural exchange, not to justify our defense policies. The tension in the room increased noticeably. After a moment, Zalprax nodded. Of course. Perhaps we are approaching this incorrectly. Let us step back. He turned to Alan again. Captain Mitchell, when your ship encountered the Draconid vessels, they conducted a scan and then retreated without explanation. Did you find this behavior puzzling? Alan nodded. Yes, they appeared to have superior technology and numbers. Their retreat was unexpected. They retreated, the Draconid representative said stiffly, because your ship design revealed something unexpected about your species. Something that required further analysis before engagement. And what was that? Admiral Nelson asked. The Draconid's eyes narrowed. That humans designed their ships with the expectation of brutal, prolonged combat. That you anticipate taking heavy damage and casualties, yet continuing to fight. This suggests a species with a very different approach to warfare than is common in the galaxy. Alan looked around the table at the alien representatives. Is this really so unusual? How do your species design your warships? The insectoid alien clicked its mandibles again. Most of our warships are designed primarily for show, to deter aggression through the appearance of strength. Actual combat is rare and typically brief. Our vessels are not built to sustain heavy damage. the floating alien added. There would be no point. In the rare event of actual conflict, the demonstrably stronger side is acknowledged as the victor before significant harm occurs. Alan struggled to process this information. You're saying that most advanced species don't actually fight wars? You just determine who would win, and then the other side concedes. For the most part, yes, Zalprax confirmed. Actual prolonged combat between spacefaring civilizations is considered primitive, wasteful, unnecessary. Admiral Nelson leaned forward, and yet the Draconids approached our system with armed vessels and hostile intent. The Draconid representative hissed. We intended only a demonstration of strength to establish the natural hierarchy. It is standard procedure with newly discovered species. We did not anticipate finding a civilization designed for extended warfare. Ambassador Harris spoke up again. I believe we're talking past each other. Humanity doesn't design for warfare because we want conflict. We design this way because our history has taught us to be prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Zalprax's skin shifted to softer blues, a reasonable position. But you must understand how unusual this appears to species who evolved beyond such concerns millennia ago. He gestured to the Draconid. Even the Imperium, considered aggressive by Concord standards, does not build ships designed to continue fighting after taking significant damage. The concept is alien to us. Alan suddenly understood. That's why they ran. They saw a ship built by a species that wouldn't give up after the first exchange of fire. A species that expects to take hits and keep fighting. The Draconid representative stiffened, but didn't deny it. Admiral Nelson looked thoughtful. So our defensive philosophy actually served as a deterrent. Interesting. Indeed, Zalprax said, though it also raises concerns about humanity's future role in the galactic community. Ambassador Harris raised an eyebrow. Concerns? Your species possesses both remarkable technological adaptability and a mindset prepared for prolonged conflict, Zalprax explained. Some members of the Concord fear that as humans advance, you could become a destabilizing force. Alan could see where this was heading. You want assurances that we won't use our warrior mindset to threaten other species. Yes, Zalprax acknowledged. That is part why we're here. Admiral Nelson stood, his expression firm, but diplomatic. The people of Earth have no interest in conquest or aggression. We build our ships the way we do because of our history, not because of our future intentions. We seek peaceful relations with all species. Yet you prepare extensively for war, the Draconid pointed out. We prepare for defense, Nelson corrected. There's a difference. As the discussion continued, Alan realized that this single diplomatic meeting might determine humanity's place in the galactic community for generations to come, all because of one scan of a human warship, a scan that had revealed not just their technology, but their entire approach to survival in a dangerous universe. The diplomatic meeting stretched into its third hour. Captain Alan Mitchell listened as Ambassador Harris and Admiral Nelson continued to explain humanity's position to the alien representatives. The conversation had moved from tense confrontation to cautious understanding, though suspicion remained on both sides. Perhaps, Zalprax suggested, it would be beneficial for both parties to learn more about each other's approach to ship design and defense. A cultural exchange, if you will. Ambassador Harris nodded. That seems reasonable. What do you propose? We could arrange for one of your officers to spend time aboard a Concord vessel, while a Concord representative joins one of your ships. This might help bridge our different perspectives. Admiral Nelson considered this. Captain Mitchell, what do you think? Would you be willing to host a representative aboard the Defiant? Alan straightened in his chair. Of course, sir. I think it's an excellent idea. Then it's settled. Ambassador Harris said, we'll arrange the details after this meeting. Zalprax's skin rippled with gentle greens and blues. There is one more matter to discuss. The Concord proposes a non-aggression treaty between humanity and all member species. As a sign of good faith and peaceful intentions, Alan noticed the Draconid representative shifting uncomfortably. Clearly, not all the aliens were equally enthusiastic about this proposal. We would need to review the specific terms, Admiral Nelson replied cautiously, but in principle, Earth welcomes such an agreement. The meeting concluded with promises of continued dialogue and the exchange program to begin within a week. As the participants filed out of the chamber, Ambassador Krell approached Alan. "Captain Mitchell, a moment, please." Alan nodded to Admiral Nelson, who continued on without him. "Ambassador, what can I do for you?" Krell's large black eyes studied Alan's face. "I wanted to thank you personally. Your handling of the Draconid encounter may have prevented a serious conflict." "I was just doing my job," Alan replied, "though I still don't fully understand why they retreated." "The Draconids rely on intimidation," Krell explained. "They expect most species to back down when confronted with superior technology or numbers. When your ship revealed a design philosophy built around enduring conflict rather than avoiding it, they became concerned. We don't seek war, Ambassador. I believe you, but your species prepares for it in ways that others find disturbing." Krell hesitated. "Captain, there is something else you should know. The rumors I mentioned during our first meeting about humans being unusual, they're spreading faster now." Alan frowned. "What exactly are they saying about us?" "That humans are natural warriors. That your evolutionary path created a species uniquely adapted for conflict and survival against overwhelming odds." Krell's voice lowered. "Some fear what humanity might become as your technology advances. Others see potential allies. And what do the Zolaxians think? We believe in judging species by their actions, not their capabilities." Krell placed a slender hand on Alan's arm. "I suggest you use this exchange program wisely, Captain. It's an opportunity to show who humans truly are beyond your warships and weapons." 1 week later, Alan stood in the Defiance transport room as Lieutenant Susan Blackwell prepared to beam over to the Zolashian diplomatic vessel. "Remember," Alan told her, "you're representing not just a Defiant, but all of humanity. Observe everything, learn what you can, but be diplomatic." Susan nodded. "I understand, sir. I'm looking forward to seeing how their ships actually work. Just try not to point out all their defensive weaknesses," Alan said with a small smile. "Apparently, that makes aliens nervous." Susan laughed. "I'll do my best, Captain." After Susan transported away, Alan made his way to the shuttle bay, where the Concord representative would be arriving. They had been assigned a Zolashian officer named Trelzix, who supposedly had experience with multiple species. The shuttle doors opened, and a slender Zolashian stepped onto the Defiant. Trelzix was younger than Ambassador Krell, his blue skin a shade darker, but he had the same large black eyes and minimal facial features. "Welcome aboard the USS Defiant," Alan greeted him. "I'm Captain Mitchell." Trelzix raised his palms in the traditional Zolashian greeting. "Thank you, Captain. I look forward to learning about your vessel and your customs. Let me show you to your quarters. Then we can begin the tour." As they walked through the ship, Alan noticed Trelzix studying everything with intense curiosity. The Zolashian paused at a sealed compartment door. "What is this section?" he asked. "That's emergency damage control," Alan explained. "It contains equipment for repairing hull breaches and other battle damage." Trelzix tilted his head. "You have many such stations throughout the ship?" "Yes, one for each major section. It allows repair teams to respond quickly without having to travel far." "Because you expect damage to occur," Trelzix stated. Alan nodded slowly. "We design for worst-case scenarios. It's just our way." The tour continued through engineering, medical, and the crew quarters. At each stop, Trelzix asked detailed questions about the redundant systems and safety features. Finally, they reached the bridge. Alan introduced the Zolashian to the duty officers, who greeted their visitor with professional courtesy. "And this is where you command during conflict?" Trelzix asked, examining the captain's chair and surrounding stations. "During any situation," Alan corrected. "Combat is rare, but we're prepared for it." Commander Rivera approached them. "Captain, we're scheduled for battle drill exercises in 30 minutes. Should we postpone with our guest aboard?" Alan glanced at Trelzix, then made a decision. "No, proceed as planned. In fact, I think our guest might find it educational." When the alert klaxon sounded half an hour later, Trelzix jumped slightly. The bridge crew smoothly transitioned to battle stations, their movements precise and practiced. "This is a simulation," Alan explained to the Zolician. "We run regular drills to ensure everyone knows their responsibilities during an emergency." Trelzix watched with wide eyes as the crew responded to the simulated attack. Damage reports came in, systems failed, and the officers adapted with calm efficiency. When a simulated hull breach was reported in engineering, emergency teams deployed instantly. "Fascinating," Trelzix murmured. "You practice for catastrophe." "We practice for survival," Alan corrected. After the drill concluded, Alan took Trelzix to the officers' mess for dinner. They sat at a small table away from the others to allow for private conversation. "You have questions," Alan said, noticing the Zolaxian's thoughtful expression. "Many," Trelzix admitted. "Your crew performed that drill with remarkable intensity. They treated the simulation as if it were real. That's the point. In a real emergency, you fall back on your training. If the training isn't realistic, it won't help when it matters." Trelzix leaned forward. "Captain, may I speak frankly?" "Please do." "Most spacefaring civilizations in the Concord would find your approach disturbing, not because it's wrong, but because it's so different from our experience." Alan nodded. Ambassador Krell mentioned something similar, that most species evolve beyond warfare, before reaching the stars. "It's more than that," Trelzix explained. "The Zolaxians haven't had a major war in over 10,000 years. The Arcturians, the ones with arms like Zalprax, haven't had one in 20,000. Even the Draconids, considered aggressive by our standards, limit their conflicts to brief demonstrations of power. And humans..." Trelzix hesitated. "Your history shows near constant warfare, with only brief periods of global peace. And even during those peaceful times, you prepare for the next conflict." Alan couldn't deny it. "That's a fair assessment. But today, I think I began to understand why." Trelzix continued. "It's not that humans love war. It's that you've learned to survive it. Those redundant systems, those battle drills, they're not about seeking conflict. They're about preserving life when conflict finds you." Alan smiled slightly. "That's probably the most accurate description of human military philosophy I've ever heard." Over the next 2 weeks, Trelzix integrated into the daily routine of the Defiant. He observed more drills, studied the ship's design, and spent time with various crew members. Alan was impressed by how quickly the Zolician adapted to life aboard a human vessel. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Blackwell sent regular reports from the Zolician ship. Her observations confirmed their earlier theories. The alien vessels were technological marvels, but their defenses were limited, and they had few contingency plans for serious damage. "They've never needed them," Trelzix explained when Alan shared this observation. "In the rare event of actual combat, one side quickly establishes superiority and the other withdraws. Prolonged battles are virtually unknown. Until they meet humans," Alan said. "Exactly." Trelzix's normally impassive face showed something like concern. "That's what frightened the Draconids. They realized that humans might not follow the unwritten rules of galactic conflict, that you might continue fighting even when, by their standards, you should concede." The exchange program concluded with a formal ceremony aboard Earth's orbital station. Lieutenant Blackwell returned with a wealth of technical and cultural data, while Trelzix prepared to rejoin his people. Before departing, Trelzix requested a private meeting with Alan, Admiral Nelson, and Ambassador Harris. "I have submitted my full report to the Galactic Concord," the Zolician told him, "but I want to share my conclusions with you directly." He activated a small holographic projector, showing an image of the USS Defiant. When the Draconids scanned your vessel, they saw a ship designed to endure conflict rather than avoid it. This frightened them because it suggested a species with a fundamentally different approach to warfare. The hologram shifted to show various internal systems of the ship. But what I've learned during my time aboard goes deeper. Yes, humans design your ships expecting damage and casualties. But you do so not because you seek conflict, but because you value survival of your mission, your vessel, and most importantly, your people. Admiral Nelson nodded. "That's correct." The redundant systems, the emergency procedures, the constant drills, these aren't the marks of a warlike species. Trelzix continued. They're the marks of a species that refuses to surrender to adversity. The hologram disappeared, and Trelzix looked at each human in turn. I believe the galaxy has much to learn from humanity. Your resilience, your adaptability, your refusal to accept defeat. These qualities make you different, yes, but they need not make you feared. 2 days later, representatives from Earth, the Galactic Concord, and even the Draconid Imperium gathered to sign the non-aggression treaty. Alan stood at attention behind Admiral Nelson as the documents were finalized. As the Admiral signed on behalf of Earth's military, Alan noticed the relief on the aliens' faces. They had feared humanity might become a new predator in the galaxy. Instead, they were beginning to see the potential for a new protector. On his last day of shore leave before the Defiant's next mission, Alan met with Ambassador Krell at Earth's Diplomatic Center. "I wanted to thank you," Krell said. "Your openness with Trelzix has helped ease many concerns among the Concord species." "We're just trying to find our place in the galaxy," Alan replied. "And I believe you have." Krell handed Alan a datapad. "The Concord is proposing a joint defense initiative. They want human input on improving their emergency protocols and defensive systems." Alan raised his eyebrows in surprise. "They want our help?" As Trelzix reported, humanity's approach to survival against adversity is unique among known species. Many now see this as a strength to be learned from, not a threat to be feared. Alan took the pad, feeling the weight of this new responsibility. All this from one scan of a human warship. Sometimes, Krell said what Alan had learned was a Zolashian smile. The greatest understanding comes from seeing things from a different perspective. As Alan looked out at the stars that evening, he reflected on how quickly everything had changed. Humanity had entered the galactic stage prepared for conflict, but found an opportunity for peace instead. Their warships, designed through centuries of bitter experience, had become not weapons of war, but symbols of humanity's greatest strength, the determination to survive and protect. And it had all started with one scan of a human warship.